Some of the key challenges. Let me say a few words about IPCC itself. IPCC was established as the UN body which provides policymakers with scientific assessments on climate change, its implications and future risks, as well as to put forward adaptation and mitigation solutions. It's not purely a science body. It's intergovernmental in character and acts as an interface between the science and the policy worlds. All 195 member states of the United Nations and the World Meteorological Organization, including all the countries from the Central Asia region, are invited to IPCC plenary sessions, which usually take place twice a year. Every IPCC cycle, which generally lasts for 7 years, governments elect a scientific leadership, which includes me as chair, 3 vice chairs, and co-chairs for each of 3 working groups. And these cover the physical basis for climate change, climate impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, and mitigation, or in other words, the reduction of emissions. But the bulk of the work is done by hundreds of scientists who volunteer their time to produce reports that are reviewed by experts and governments and are finally approved and accepted by governments in a full plenary session. This is the most thorough scientific assessment process ever developed. It represents a gold standard for environmental assessments, and it's a model that has been adopted by other scientific bodies. Now, we completed our 6th assessment cycle just under 3 years ago. So let's ask, what were the key findings? Well, first of all, it is now almost inevitable that the world will exceed global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels within the next few years. And above 1.5 degrees, the severity of the risks associated with climate change will start to intensify. As it stands, according to the United Nations Environment Programme GAP report, if countries continue with current policies, the world will warm by 2.8 degrees by the end of the century. And even if all of the current nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, are realised, and all the current national net zero emission targets, such as those set by Kazakhstan, are achieved, the world will still warm by 1.9 degrees by the end of the century. Now, this is just about compatible with the long-term temperature goal in the Paris Agreement, but well in excess of the 1.5 degrees warming threshold. So here we can ask ourselves, what does that mean globally, and what does it mean in the Central Asia region? Now, globally, risks associated with wildfire damage, permafrost degradation, biodiversity loss, and water scarcity in drylands start to increase beyond 1.5 degrees of global warming. And according to the World Meteorological Organization's State of the Climate report, the world has already warmed by almost 1.4 degrees Celsius. And we are already starting to see impacts in terms of extreme weather, floods, and world wildfires. Now, the Central Asian region faces its own unique set of challenges. Some of these involve more gradual, so-called slow onset events, and others involve exposure to extremes. And one of the most critical slow onset events for this region involves the loss of glacier mass in high mountain areas. There could be up to a 70% loss of mass by the end of this century in a scenario compatible with the continuation of current policies. Annual water runoff in many glaciated catchments globally could decline by more than 10%, with the Central Asian region among the most affected around the world. And let me emphasize, it's not only averages that matter. Changes in the water cycle can result in changes in floods, landslides, and water availability. Climate change also interacts with the way in which we humans manage land and agricultural practices. Groundwater extraction for irrigation in the region will interact with changes in precipitation patterns and water resource fluctuations, resulting in soil erosion and desertification. Increased aridity in the Central Asia region will accelerate beyond the middle of this century if the world warms by more than 2 degrees, which we are on a track to do at the moment. Extreme climate change would depress yields of agricultural products and adversely affect ecological systems. And finally, one of the more obvious impacts of climate change is the impact on temperature extremes. Annual hottest day temperatures are projected to increase by 50 to 100% above the average warming levels in some mid-latitude and semi-arid regions such as Central Asia. And I note that the highest ever temperature recorded in Astana was 41.6 degrees Celsius, and with even higher extremes in other countries in the region, there can be climate challenges in midsummer as well as in midwinter. Now that has been a very depressing set of findings that I've set out in the last few minutes. Now, in communicating our reports, we do try to walk a line between reporting honestly the risks associated with climate change, but also the opportunities available to us to address and reduce the risks that we face.